On the Monday observance of Juneteenth, the day commemorating news of the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of slavery, hundreds gathered at the Civil Courts building to unveil a monument to hundreds of enslaved people who went to court in St. Louis to win their freedom, and to those who helped them, arguing that a slave taken even temporarily into free territory was forever free. Mayor Tashara Jones, one of several speakers, called this the complex, messy, and powerful history of St. Louis.
Just as the Gateway Arch is a symbol of the gateway to the West, this stunning monument stands as a testament to fairness and how our courts served as a gateway to freedom for slaves.
Other speakers included Lynn Jackson, a descendant of Dred and Harriet Scott, the most famous of the hundreds who sued for their freedom here and now have their own monument. But let's back up a bit, as Ruthie Zell tells us how all this came about.
The road to the new memorial starts just a few blocks east of the Civil Courts building at the old courthouse. It was here that Dred Scott and his wife Harriet sought to gain their freedom from slavery through the legal system. Though the Dred Scott case was once widely considered an isolated case, court documents revealed the existence of more than 300 similar suits. This statue of the Scotts outside the old courthouse pays tribute to their struggle. And now, thanks to efforts spearheaded by St. Louis Circuit Court Judge David Mason, a new statue has been created, one that memorializes all enslaved people who are named in what are called freedom suits.
The thing about the Freedom Suits Memorial is that it is really unique in this country. Now, there are a lot of statues out there that depict us. When I say us, I mean enslaved black people, slaves, as very subservient, beat down victims. And that was a true fact of the life of slavery. What this statue does, however, is express the honor and the courage that was in the heart of the American slave, that desire to be free, which is a desire that thousands and millions of people who came to this country always had.
To learn more about the memorial, we traveled to Peoria, Illinois, and the studio of artist Preston Jackson.
The figurative art that you see, all of it's figurative, you know.
And that figurative style in many of Jackson's paintings carries over to his sculpture, including the work for St. Louis he titled Freedom's Home. These images from its early stages show how the sculpture was created in sections. Collectively, they tell the story of the enslaved who petitioned for their freedom, the white attorneys who represented them in court, and the judges who sought to interpret existing laws fairly for slaves whose cases had merit.
I didn't want the piece to be completely solid, so I left a place for light to come through the piece, see? Because that area is kind of a nod to St. Louis itself, you know, coming and going. St. Louis is about coming and going from other places.
The process Jackson uses of making molds that end up at a foundry for casting has several stages, and that process dates back centuries. Jackson says the enormity of the Freedom Suits project required him to divide the casting work among 3 separate foundries.
But definitely the feel that I wanted was African image making, you know, carved wood, flat planes, angles, and so forth.
I'm one of those people who really believes art can tell enduring stories, can tell stories over and over to the same person. Because when you look at it again, you see something you didn't see before. And there needs to be more of that. It's a way of doing a documentary, if you will, that is also interesting to just look at in and of itself because it's artistic. But done right, art like that can also make the viewer think of things and feel things and go back in time on things that they may not have otherwise ever paid any attention to. And that's when art becomes powerful.
And I want everyone to just take a brief look around. Just tilt your head left and right. Because in case you were wondering, this is St. Louis. This is St. Louis. St. Louis stands behind the honor of its history. Because as you are here, you may be not only a descendant of a slave who won, but a family member that took them in after they got out, or took them in after freedom was won after the Civil War. You may be a descendant of those who sat in the pews at Central Baptist Church, right next to Dred and Harriet Scott. You may be the descendants of some of the white men who said, you know, the law is what it is. You're free. And because of the fact that we share a descendancy of everything that went on in our courts, we can be truly happy today. This is a celebration, the Juneteenth celebration.
As important as the 14-foot sculpture is the base, on which are inscribed names of men, women, and children, not as famous as Dred Scott, but who also fought for their freedom in the courthouse in St. Louis. The monument is in a place that will soon be officially designated as Freedom Plaza.